Triple H announced this week that Smackdown stars are now going to be heading over to WWE Monday Night Raw. In what people are calling now the Raw Super Show, we're going to see the two brands in a sense combined. Now the question is out there, will this be the end of the brand split? Is this the finish of guys are only going to be exclusive to one show? What would your take on that be?
My take on that would be pretty cool if we didn't have two rosters. If you didn't have a Raw roster and a Smackdown roster, you just had the WWE superstars. One big pottle. What the hell is a pottle? One big kettle. Or one big pot is what I'm trying to say. Or either of the above. You can pick your own choice for that one. But some sort of a deal where it's not the Raw roster and the Smackdown roster. Just a big pot of superstars that you can just put together for matches. That would be cool. What I'm not down with is the fact that they are Raw superstars, Smackdown superstars, and you're going to see Alberto Del Rio, which isn't a bad thing all the time. You're going to see somebody like Randy Orton all the time. You're going to see Cena all the time. And then what happens? The Usos. The Usos aren't going to get seen. What happens? Who else is down there in the lower card? Possibly someone without a spot, like even The Miz might be a victim of it. He doesn't really have anything really strong besides the R-Truth thing to go on. So for people like that, and for the lower card and the mid card, tough times ahead if the COO is going to drive the ship that way.
I think so. I think this brand split has, in a sense, hindered creativity for a long time. People should, in a sense, be able to appear on any show, because back in the day when you watched a Wrestling Challenge or WWF Superstars, it was all about, you didn't know who was going to appear. The matches could be altogether strange combinations that you never expected. Of course, in a sense then, you would really be shocked and surprised when feuds started to develop that perhaps weren't something you had ever seen. Maybe we know Raw guys are going to feud with Raw guys. We don't expect a guy from SmackDown to come in out of nowhere and to start a feud with a Raw guy, unless of course he's headed towards the main event like someone like Del Rio. But with SmackDown, I think SmackDown has kind of... well, it's not really going to benefit from this now, is it? I mean, there's going to be a lot of their top guys going over to Raw, whereas at the same time, I hope they don't use this as a device to, right, let's bring Cena over to SmackDown every single time we can. And
they probably will do stuff like that, I think, for the most part. Definitely with the top tier talent. I think as well, it's 2011 now, and they try to fool us into thinking the brands are that exclusive that when somebody like, they even did it this week, when Orton appeared on Raw, it was like, all the way from SmackDown, it's Randy Orton, SmackDown's biggest superstar. For those of you who haven't, I mean, they know, everybody knows. Christ, he was on Raw, what 3 months ago or something. Everybody knows the deal. So I hate when they do that. Bugs me.
Yeah, it was also an annoying thing when someone would go constantly back and forth. As maybe you've said there, that it was like Jericho, who would perhaps go from SmackDown to Raw. He was about the only person that I would rate as being worth doing that. Now, anyone else that's gone back and forth has not really, I think, been important enough to do that. Talking about people who've maybe been around on the brand after being traded not too many weeks ago, and then suddenly you see them directly on Raw once more. But I suppose it's all what they want to do with the main event, and to be honest with you, I think that's all that's going to benefit from, in a sense, the end of a brand split will be those main events. Now, someone rightly put it here in the chat room that you won't really have a brand split ending until guys can challenge for each respective belt. So a guy from SmackDown could actually put himself in the running for the World Heavyweight Championship, and of course Raw guys, most importantly, being in the running for the WHC. Yeah,
it's true. And not only that, I also think it affects the programming heavily. It affects the storylines, it affects the title situation, because what they tend to do with these super shows is, like I said, get the top tier guys on both every time and put them in these tag team matches, just like we saw with that Cena Sheamus tag team match, where there's no real reason for it. There's no reason why you should care for it just because it's a super show. It doesn't involve any storyline really, and it doesn't further anything in the title situation. So if anything, it just hogs time that could have been given to a decent storyline or something, you know, a bit more creative. If it is a case they're struggling with creativity, which they never seem to do for the most part, fair enough, but you know, I don't think it is the case.
I think the pay-per-views could benefit a lot from this. Now, suddenly you can have pairings that maybe we can't predict. If perhaps we're heading towards Fatal 4-Way and matches with 3 people involved. A lot of those teamed, gimmicked pay-per-views, like SP103 in the chat room says, it affects Money in the Bank briefcases too if you end the brand split. And it could be an effect that has a positive change on how this show is put together. You know, like I say, suddenly now you can maybe have a Fatal 4-Way with 2, maybe 3 Smackdown guys, 1 Raw guy, or vice versa. You can really change it up and create matchups without, in a sense, losing some Raw exclusivity, because really it's a 50% brand split ending. It's for SmackDown really to kind of break their walls down, send their guys to Raw. And as I say, I really don't see how the benefit's going to come back. I suppose it will be Cena going on a SmackDown and kind of spiking those ratings maybe. Mac Attack 90, if the brand extension is ended, surely they will have to unify all the major singles titles.
Which wouldn't be a bad thing, yeah. Too many titles is definitely one thing we've complained about for a long time. But they're all kind of relevant titles as well, so it's going to be hard for them to pull it back to the old days with maybe a heavyweight championship, a mid card, and a tag team belts. I suppose the other side of it is it's not all negative with some decent matches. Orton and Ziggler, I thought that was quite funny to have the two of them go one-on-one. But I think we've always said why they split the brands in the first place was a bit puzzling, that it should just be like the old days of the wrestling challenges and superstars, like you said. But under those terms of Raw roster, SmackDown roster, if that was to go and it was just the WWE roster, I think that would be fair and that would be cool, because you would have so many options to run with.
They've talked about this for years, haven't they, where they kind of have said, let's end it in a roundabout way. It's been rumoured that some way they were going to find to kind of get rid of it, but also, and they've done this, keep it, because as I say, it doesn't seem like they're actually announcing, right, there's no such thing as a brand split. But in a sense, how often have they even referred to it in these past few years? It's just kind of existed. I remember a time when, of course, there were SmackDown exclusive pay-per-views, and at that point you knew what the brand split was about. You were buying a show, watching a live pay-per-view that would only feature SmackDown guys, and of course you had the Raw pay-per-views as well. Good memories of those. I mean, they were good, but SmackDown ones not so good. A lot of kind of screwball scramble matches, I like to call them, with people like Chavo and
awful stuff,
maybe Carlito.
People would never get a look on pay-per-view otherwise.
Yeah, again, will this help SmackDown guys get a spot now on a pay-per-view?
It depends. If the spotlight's hogged, I don't see how a lot of them can, to be honest. You know?
Yeah.
But then again, it might open up doors for a lot of those guys that aren't getting a chance to shine. You know, a Tyson Kidd would be a good example.
Yeah, I think the biggest worry would be, like I said earlier, that it would be a case of the main event would be the part of the show that benefited from this, and perhaps the lower and mid-card guys wouldn't see the light of day. I mean, as you say, throw someone like Tyson Kidd over to Raw for an odd match. I mean, why not? You know, lighten it all up. So it's a kind of a strange decision they've made. I look forward to seeing how it plays out, because, as I say, they haven't ended the brand split, but they've made Raw at least a little bit more open to having some new guys on and to opening up those chances for new storylines. So I think it's a positive effect that it will have on it. Of course, it also seems like a bit of a cop-out, kind of like, well, you know, Raw's suffering in the ratings, we have to do something. And in this case, we're going to make SmackDown a non-exclusive brand. So is it ended? Is the brand split gone? Your thoughts on that in the chat room. I think our thoughts, well, made fairly clear, but definitely getting back to the old days of anything can happen anywhere. I mean, there'd be a match where you'd have a Jake Roberts in a mask called El Diablo, and you wouldn't have expected Jake Roberts to be there, but of course Jake Roberts teaming up with The Undertaker. Again, things like that could come out of nowhere, and they can do that now.
Yeah, you know, I think again another thing that suffers on the SmackDown side, and you can see just the success of it this week alone, is not having the live SmackDown. You know, I think it might be tough for him to do, and it might cost a lot to have a second live show every week, but I think a live SmackDown every week would be pretty cool. You know, it definitely would help the show.
Yeah, this live SmackDown improved my want to see the show. I even checked out some of the repeat for a little bit, not all of it. But live SmackDown, when you flick on a Tuesday night and you just happen to see that it's live after the live Monday Night Raw, it's handy because you get all your wrestling in 2 nights, and
you're done.
You can forget about it then. You don't have to watch NXT. I mean, who does? I tried recording it. I haven't bothered looking at it yet, but it's the same with Superstars. It's not appointment viewing, but getting those 2 shows on live Monday and Tuesday, that is the way forward to me, and you can tie it all in then. Of course, it won't be Friday night SmackDown anymore, it'll be Tuesday night. And actually, I forget, did they even refer to that? They just said, no, it's live now. They just didn't mention Friday at all.
I just think they call it Super SmackDown, maybe, to cover it all up. But again, for the people with the spoilers, if you're you know, a spoiler type, then you avoid all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, and actually it's very, very tricky. If you did have a live Monday and Tuesday and you weren't someone who watched it live, you would have to avoid YouTube. That's another one, by the way. You've got to avoid YouTube. I think we got some criticism one time. I think it was the night after SummerSlam. Hours later, we had up Alberto Del Rio, new WWE champion. But I mean, it's YouTube. You know, people are going to be on there talking.
Yeah.
But I'm sure I changed that quickly when I realised. But look, I mean, if I come across a spoiler, I came across it. There's nothing I can do.
It's the internet. It's going to happen. You can try to avoid them, but especially with Facebook as well. I mean, people in capital letters when you're trying to avoid them, you know. What can you do?
It is Wrestledope talking about the brand split and whether or not it is a brand split. Has it been put into effect now where anyone can go anywhere? I mean, it would open up interesting possibilities for those NXT guys.
Jesus Christ, it would, yeah.
Any chance they could be on Raw once?
I know. I have no idea what's going on with the redemption or whatever you call it.
It's funny because they did used to do NXT segments. They'd bring them on Raw and they'd show them off and they'd say, right, NXT is on. They just have no interest in advertising this.
It's so buried at this stage, isn't it? I mean, once they're not on TV, I don't think people are too concerned, really.
Checking out the chat room, SP103 says the Raw with SmackDown guys is just the WWE's way of trying to not lose 500,000 viewers a night to Monday Night Football starting next week. And of course that's the other side of it in the US, where there is actually legit television competition for a show like Raw. Of course over here live, there's nothing else on at 2 a.m. So they do kind of do fairly well, I think, in general, at least for the smaller market that exists here. Captain Charisma Y2J activating the Euro belt would be good because there will be stepping stones, 3rd, 2nd to 1st tier. Adding a new belt. I suppose more on that unification topic, because I know someone mentioned that, we talked about it a bit. It was mentioned many months ago, maybe about a year ago, that they were considering, if you like, sort of unifying all of those titles. Of course you might end up with no titles on SmackDown at all then.
Yeah, depends.
Are they trying to cancel SmackDown, I wonder?
I don't know. You see, it would be tough. Again, you got to remember, if you've got a live pay-per-view on a Sunday night, you got a live Raw on a Monday, and if you were to go live SmackDown on Tuesday night, somebody like a Rey Mysterio is going to be banged up again before you know it. He's going to, that other knee will be needing surgery pretty quickly.
Yeah, it just occurred to me there, and people mentioning about the competitions. Sharpshooter says, Raider Nation, I won't be watching Raw next Monday. Football, a big competitor for wrestling on television. Of course, many people wouldn't really get the fact that in America, Raw is on at 9 p.m. on a proper cable channel, a big channel now. I mean, it's not just tucked away on maybe, you know, your E4 or some equivalent like that. It gets a prime time audience from all types of ages, and I think often people wonder, you know, maybe they don't watch the product and perhaps they know us, check this out. It's kind of like, well, isn't that something for kids? But there's a far wider demographic in the US.
There is, yeah.
You're talking about up to any age you can think of. Adults, I mean, kids really aren't watching at 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, it's like a soap opera for a lot of people as well. You know, even the middle-aged women, which is quite strange. And a lot of those Raw guys are just household names really across the States. You know.
Yeah.
Which is not to be said about the SmackDown guys or TNA or people like that. But when you're on a slot like that, I suppose, like you say, it's prime time, and it is 9 p.m. Even if it is a Monday night, if you're casually flicking and you're going to see some crazy interaction between somebody, like I remember the days when they had the weddings test and Steph and things like that. I think if you were a casual button pusher and you stumble on that stuff, you're going to stop if there was nothing else on just to see, and then you might find yourself enjoying it, and then the next thing you know, you're coming back next week. And I think all through the Attitude Era, you know, stuff like that happened, and that's why it was so successful at the time. These days, on the other hand, Johnny whoever in tights doing whatever might not necessarily pull him in, but for the fans, you know, we're kind of sticking by it just about, I suppose.
I was going to say there when you said Johnny Ace, of course. Is Johnny Ace pulling them in? Is Laurinaitis, as a new character, making decisions like that behind the scenes to end that brand split? Of course, Laurinaitis becoming more and more of an on-screen character week by week. I don't think his charisma is picking up any bit, but he's still there and he's still part of it. So it's funny that they've picked someone like that. Of course, back in the day, of course, you would have had Pat Patterson and Gerald Briscoe hanging around with McMahon, and of course we miss McMahon in a sense. I'm waiting for him to stick his nose in here and say, well, you know, maybe at the end of this Triple H thing, it's going to be McMahon taking back power, maybe kind of saying to Triple H, you know, this brand split is over, JR is fired. He could change all of Triple H's decisions, reverse them, and if you like, kind of take it back for him. Maybe it's Stephanie who's going to be the one doing that. Perhaps the whole point of this is to sort of create on-screen authority figures. Now, I know we all know Stephanie, but I suppose the new audience doesn't.
Yeah, you'd be surprised, I suppose, who would and who wouldn't, or it would be easy to get a quick recap if you didn't. I think it would be quite funny if the whole change in the current, let's put it that way, was one big work and they gave the fans, you know, 5 minutes of hope for the future of the business, and then Vince came back and crushed everybody's soul, got rid of the tag teams and went back to playing it safe.
He could even get rid of the tag teams. That's one I did not include, but he could do everything, couldn't he? You know, they can so easily work us, and I think whatever happens on Monday night on a Raw is probably the most talked about thing for the rest of the week in terms of wrestling subjects that are discussed wherever. And I think, you know, it is the platform for making those shocking moments happen. I wasn't surprised, if you like, about this SmackDown thing, but it kind of reminds me of that old, was it the ECW New Superstar Initiative? You know, it's almost like the SmackDown stars are as buried as that in a sense, but it could open up chances for someone like Drew McIntyre.
It could, yeah, it sure could. I saw Drew doing something there recently. Maybe it was on Superstars, but you know, yeah, exactly. There's a typical guy. If you're going to do those inter-branded super shows, that will not right now will not get a look in. His spot is going to be hogged to pieces by a Cena or a Del Rio. No offense to both of them, but maybe to Cena. But poor Drew. I'm sure he's got a lot in the tank to offer. I think he has for sure. And even guys like Sheamus, I think, will find it tough to get their spots on their supposed shows. If he's part of what roster is he on these days?
Is he still Smackdown? And he was taking on Mark
Smackdown,
Henry
yeah.
Last time I saw him. And of course, they haven't been too quick at announcing any kind of Mark Henry Orton thing, which we expected, but I didn't see that on the card. I don't know if you know whether that's been announced, but according to the sources that I've seen, it's not down locked on the card, so who knows whether that's going to happen. There are 2 matches announced for Knock 2011, and we're going to talk Knock predictions later on tonight. We did do that a few weeks ago, and I think we got one of the matches on lockdown, but it was actually longer for it to happen than I had realised. I thought it was coming up in weeks, maybe 2, but actually it's not still going to be on for another week or 2 yet. So we will talk Knock 2011 in this YouTube video here on the channel, youtube.com/TheWrestleDope, and also we're now live on justin.tv/WrestleDope Radio every Sunday, 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific and 9 GMT. SP says Drew McIntyre is still around. He's more buried than Matt Hardy's YouTube account.
Oh boy, there's a controversial one we need to speak about tonight.
Yeah,
I'd like to hear our peeps' thoughts.
That's a video all in itself, isn't it, Matt Hardy?
Yeah, I think we could pull one out of the bag, definitely.
We'll definitely, we found it quite helpful last week to do these small topic videos, and they got some hits on YouTube. We talked about Sin Cara, Mick Foley, and of course also a little bit about WWE 12. Titled it with all caps, fired it up, and the demographic responded.
Absolutely. They absolutely did.
So I think if we could do a Matt Hardy video, get all of his information, his tags and his title, and we can relate it directly to that famous, controversial now Matt Hardy video, and maybe we'll get some hits on that. That's probably not going to be in this video, but on our channel, youtube.com/TheWrestleDope. So I'm wondering now where they're taking this overall. I mean, I joked a minute ago about the cancellation of Smackdown, but I actually believe that that's a real possibility at some point in the future. Who would have ever thought that a WWE show would fall off the air, as in the case of NXT, where they had their TV spot and actually they lost it, and nobody ran to sign it up. So they're not invincible, and of course they could always self-broadcast something like that. Of course, SmackDown is an arena show. They're selling tickets for it as well. But do you ever see a day where SmackDown could be completely gone? I mean, I for one wouldn't miss it.
Yeah, I think it's gotten better. It's gotten better over time. Small additions here and there. The roster isn't too bad as far as previous SmackDown rosters have been in the years. I don't think it's going to drop anytime soon. I think it's an established part of their product, and the ratings seem to be very good, especially on Sci-Fi this week with the live SmackDown. It can get stale at times. I think it will get stale again, but for now it seems to be kind of chugging along fairly okay. I don't see why they would pull it down. Again, I suppose maybe the interbranding is just a test to see how well it would work in this kind of environment these days with everything. Maybe. Yeah,
in a sense, I totally understand. I mean, the viewing figures keep it there, and certainly they're not tanking. People watch this. They watch Raw and SmackDown every week, and there are some people who maybe only just watch Raw. I kind of eventually fell into that category, I have to be honest. It's not that I don't see SmackDown, I just see it in a collection of flashing images going by me about 8 times the speed of the actual show. I fast forward a lot of it because you just can't sit there for some of the stuff. Of course, From the Vault, the first thing that you're not going to watch, but after that, I mean, at times you have to want to see Tyson Kidd taking on whoever. You have to be kind of like, right, tonight I want to see wrestling rather than entertainment. And of course that balance is always, you know, in the favour of entertainment on the Raw side, SmackDown a bit more of a wrestling show.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
maybe that's the problem.
Yeah, it always has been really. Raw will be the one with the skits and the promos and the, as you say, the entertainment, heavy on the entertainment side. SmackDown can be here or there. I mean, this week I think SmackDown actually outshone Raw when it came to the entertainment side of things. I thought Raw was, I will say, piss poor for the most part. Didn't interest me at all. I found myself fast forwarding through an awful lot of it. Whereas SmackDown, you know, there was a lot of stop moments on the fast forward, so you know, in that sense, it's not all bad. But yeah, I would agree that it is the wrestling heavy show out of the two, the SmackDown.
Absolutely. Now, of course, that's what we all maybe did start tuning in for in the first place. I admit that. I mean, it does make me seem like a non-fan. I hope there's others who maybe think the same, that, you know, SmackDown is tricky viewing at the best of times, and with so much TV, maybe I'll watch other stuff as well. It does make it hard to get it all in. Of course, I lost altogether the run of TNA, and that subject is one that I think we can also speak a little bit about in the next video if you're watching here on